Radio Nederland presents a Van Beinem Jubilee Concert. When on the occasion of Eduard van Beinem's 25th anniversary as conductor of the Amsterdam Concertgebouw Orchestra, he was asked what remembrance he would like to receive, he expressed the wish to conduct some specially written works by Netherlands composers. 3 composers were commissioned, each of them representing a generation. Sam Dresden, who is 75, Hans Henkemans, 42, and the 27-year-old Hans Kox. This last composer of the youngest generation is a pupil of the well-known Dutch composer Henk Badings, and we have them here in our studio today. Here is Henk Badings with his pupil Hans Kox to introduce Kox's work to you. Mr. Badings.
Yes, well, Hans Kox is the Benjamin among Dutch composers of established reputation. And when Radio Nederland asked me to introduce him to you, the reason is that I know him from his musical cradle. 8 years ago, an 18-year-old boy came to me, practically a blank page, to study musical composition. I soon saw that he was very gifted. I prepared him for an elementary examination, but when he came back, he had a higher degree and with flying colors. After this preparation, he studied all that a composer must know, and it is a lot of harmony, counterpoint, instrumentation, form, and all the problems of composing for orchestra, choir, chamber music, piano, and so on. I think it's now about 3 years ago that he was presented to a larger public, and I dare say with a sudden and great success. What work was that again, Hans?
It was my first trio for 2 violins and viola.
Ah, yes, I remember. About a year later, when he was 24, he made a great impression with a piano sonata that he performed himself. At that time, most musicians still considered him as, well, just a nice boy who might indeed have some talent. But this opinion suddenly changed when his first string quartet was performed. The composer of this work, it was felt, was no longer a nice but unimportant boy. No, from then on the severe critics saw a coming man in Hans Kox. He got the chance of his life when the Concertgebouw Orchestra commissioned him to write a concerto for horn, trumpet, and trombone, which was to be performed at one of the Van Beinem Jubilee concerts. Horn, trumpet, and trombone may seem quite an unusual combination, but the concerto was intended to bring to the foreground some of the orchestra's brilliant soloists who usually don't get a chance to show their abilities. A difficult task even for an accomplished composer. For Kox it meant to be or not to be. Well, he needn't have worried, for since its first performance the composer's fame is firmly established. It got him the music prize of his birth town Arnhem and a whole series of commissions. Now I should like to ask the composer to tell us something about his work. Hans, you told me that your concerto shows your love for some other composers.
Yes, I have great admiration for Bruckner and, well, of course, for my teacher Badings.
Thank you.
Here, for instance, is a piece where you might recognize Bruckner's influence.
Ah, yes, that's quite obvious. And a nice coincidence, seeing that Bruckner is such a favorite of Van Beinem too.
And here is a passage with a favorite rhythmic pattern of yourself, Henk.
Well, you are a good pupil. And now, Hans, could you tell us something about this work we are going to hear?
Well, the concerto consists of 3 movements. The first movement, Allegro energico, is preceded by a slow introduction. This introduction depicts a mysterious and meditative atmosphere. The 3 solo instruments strike up with the rather aggressive allegro. The cadence of this first movement fully enables the soloists to prove their virtuosity. The second movement begins with a broad melody for strings. Gradually, the rest of the orchestra is added, but in the middle section, the horn, trumpet, and trombone are combined in counterpoint. The last movement forms the close and synthesis of this work. It is introduced by an excited tutti for percussion instruments and strings. Out of this, a dancing theme arises, played by the trumpet to the accompaniment of horn and trombone.
Fine. Thank you very much, Mr. Hans Kox and his teacher, Mr. Henk Badings. And now, Radio Nederland invites you to listen to the Concertgebouw Orchestra, conducted by Eduard van Beinem, performing the Concerto for Horn, Trumpet, Trombone and Orchestra by Hans Kox, in our series of Van Beinem Jubilee Concerts. That was the Concerto for Horn, Trumpet, Trombone and Orchestra by Hans Kox. The work was written on the occasion of Eduard van Beinem's 25th anniversary as conductor of the Concertgebouw Orchestra of Amsterdam. It was played by the Concertgebouw Orchestra, conducted by Eduard van Beinem. The program was one in a series of Van Beinem Jubilee concerts and came to you through the facilities of the transcription service of Radio Nederland, Hilversum, Holland.